Virgo rising is all about organization and diligence. So this makes Virgo the epitome of efficiency and management. Or we can say it is extremely demanding and overprepared. Virgo is also the best at patience and details. But we can also say this makes it full of hesitation and tediousness. So as you can see, we've organized the symbolism of Virgo into 4 themes, and each theme has a polarity to it that's positive or negative. So the sign has symbolisms, and those symbolisms can play out positively or negatively. Each sign is kind of like a musical instrument. So take, for example, a guitar. A guitar sounds like a guitar no matter what, but it sounds quite different depending on how you play it. Similarly with rising signs, each sign has basic symbolism, but leaves us with the question of how this symbolism will be utilized by this particular chart for this particular person. So should you expect the positive or the negative implications from your Virgo? It all depends upon the positivity or negativity of your Virgo in your chart. At the end of this video, I'll explain how you figure out that dignity. For now, I want to just mention that I just released a new report, which will sort out all the dignity for you and give you an exact balance for your rising sign of how much of the positive traits are versus how much of the negative traits. So firstly, we said Virgo is the epitome of efficiency. So it excels in organizing things. It's organizationally efficient. It has a very sharp or refined intellect, and it specifically applies that intellect to very practical things. That means that Virgo is very good at solving practical problems. And that's why it's an excellent manager, figures out how to organize systems and people to operate in the most efficient and effective way possible. Now, if you look at the same trait, but just frame it in a negative way, then what you realize is there's too much organization. That means it's like always working and always making you work. So a negative Virgo has a very heavy feeling to it. It's onerous. It's burdensome. It's so exact about everything and wants everything to be so perfect. And it loses sight about what's an important thing to get perfect and what's a non-essential thing to get perfect. So for you as a Virgo, you can feel like you're just carrying so much weight and so much responsibility and doing so many tasks. And for the people that you're dealing with, they feel like you're so demanding and constantly expecting them to work really hard. Now, coming back to the positive aspect of Virgo, because it's very efficient in organizing things, it's excellent in management. So it's very good at organizing people as well as systems. In other words, like how things should interact with each other. Logistics, how do you get things from one place to another efficiently? Or how do you move money around efficiently and so forth? How do you manage things? How do you manage people? And how do you manage resources? Virgo is the all-star of the zodiac at all that. It's kind of management. But again, if Virgo is negative, that management becomes too much. You get a lot of anxiety, inability to forget about things, inability to relax and just chill. You're always trying to juggle things. You're always trying to manage things. And a feeling that you have to be so perfectly prepared for everything. Coming back to the positive traits of Virgo, because it's very diligent, it's got a great deal of patience. Virgo is really the most patient of all the zodiacs. That means that it pays attention very carefully and for a long time, longer than other people can pay attention and in more detail than others can. And this is because a strong motivator of Virgo is intellect, and it wants to understand things. So it develops, therefore, patience because it takes time to understand things. And it also has a patience about implementing its solutions and its ideas and its strategies. It doesn't like to rush into things, and it doesn't like to be forced to do things on the spur of the moment. So to the extent that Virgo isn't positive in a chart, that becomes problematic. That aversion to being rushed, or that aversion to doing things on the spur of the moment, because sometimes you have to do things quickly. So the negative Virgo takes this quality of patience and makes it too much. You're waiting too much. You're hesitating because of not having any comfort level at all with the idea that you have to do something now, you have to decide now. So this can also feel like timidity and indecisiveness. On the positive side, Virgo rising is the best zodiac sign for details. It notices things that nobody else notices. Therefore, it gets things really correct. It knows all the details about how things work and what's going on. The fact that it's very patient also helps this a lot because it doesn't find details irritating. That's a key thing about Virgo, is it actually likes details. It goes about things in the correct order. It doesn't mind dealing with, say, ritualistic things or governmental things or bureaucratic things. So Virgo is really excellent at keeping track of things and clerical work. But the negative side of being very detail-oriented is that you can be extremely boring. Negative Virgo can come across as very tedious. Why are you spending so much time about the spelling of things? So Virgo starts to feel like it lacks imagination, or it lacks inspiration, and all that it's really concerned with is the nitty-gritties. So the vision of Virgo, the more that it's negative, becomes smaller, less ambitious. So should you expect the positive or the negative implications from your Virgo? It all depends upon the positivity or negativity of your Virgo in your chart. Sign dignity is extremely useful for interpreting the houses, especially the first house, the rising sign. And you can also use it to interpret the dignity of any house that sign creates in any of the subdivisions as well, which is what I do in my report in the subdivisions module. So without going into too much explicit, mentally exhausting detail, here is basically how you figure out sign dignity. First of all, there's two things you need to know. You need to know the overall dignity of every planet, and you need to know how much aspect each planet is giving to each sign. Now, once you know those two things, you have 4 steps. You take the overall dignity of a planet and you multiply it by the percentage of aspect that the planet has on a sign. And that's how much dignity that planet is contributing to that sign. And by aspect, I also mean conjunction. However, when you do this, exclude the ascendant lord and exclude the sign's lord itself, because those will be handled separately. Then when you have that tally of the dignity contributed from the aspects of all the planets to a sign, you add to that the dignity of the sign's lord. And you average it with a weight that makes the sign's lord's dignity twice as important as the aspects from the other planets. Then you're halfway done. You got 2 more steps. Now we want to deal with the sign's lord and the first lord, whose influence is always positive. So just get the amount of aspect or conjunction from the sign's lord and the first lord to this particular sign that you're evaluating, and average them up with such a weighting that the sign's lord is twice as important as the first lord's. Now you're 3/4 of the way done. There's just one more step. You take the value that you got in step 3 and you average it with the value that you got before in step 2 in a weighting that makes step 2's 4 times more significant.